Hey everyone, so I'm gonna give you another video of this week in physics, so news and stuff that is happening this week in physics. First one is it was found finally on why it seems that as you get older, time seems to speed up. So what happens is, and maybe if you're too young to notice that, you will notice that later on in life, it seems like a whole year takes much less time to pass than it was when you were younger, a teenager or a child. And this happens at an exponential rate. So it looks like the older you get, the faster it seems that time is passing by. So 1 year when you are 40 doesn't take or doesn't seem to take as much as 1 year when you are 15. So now we know why this happens. So it is true, this happens, and that's how it feels like. So life is just going to pass through really fast. But why? So the human mind senses time changing when the perceived image change. And what happens is that the rate at which changes in mental images are caused and perceived decreases with age. So that means that children are able to receive and process more mental images per second than adults are, and their days feel like they are packed with much more time. So this is the reason why as you get older, it's going to feel like time is passing quicker, okay? And this happens for everyone, so get ready for it. The other one is quite an interesting one because as a woman in physics, oh, my dog is here trying to smell the microphone. As a woman in physics, I actually been through this stuff. So there was this physicist, Alexander Stramier, that gave a lecture on why his field has so many much more male people. And he said that it was not about discrimination, it was inherent ability. So he was just saying, women don't like physics, women are not so good at physics. And as I was reading this, it actually really reminded me of my previous boss, where he really had this idea that because I was a woman, so he came into my work, and because I was a woman, I could not be as good as the other ones, despite the fact that data actually showed otherwise. And I went through quite a lot with that boss, and as I was reading that article, it really felt like it. And as a woman, young woman, and knowing that I have female students, and knowing that this is quite big happening right now in this week in physics, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So the headline said, "The data doesn't lie. Women don't like physics." That was the headline from this physicist. And the Time report, so this was in the Sunday Times. So he first gave a lecture, and then he wants now to make a paper, and he made an article in the Sunday Times. And he also said physics was invented and built by men, which is a complete lie. I mean, I have here, and I'm not going to say that men didn't contribute. Of course they did, but I'm sorry, it was quite a lot of, especially in astrophysics. I know a lot of women who have been doing data, even in the Hubble Space Telescope. When Hubble discovered that the galaxies were moving further away from Earth, it was the job of women who were looking at the data and made that discovery. Just because the person that was leading the field or the study was a man doesn't mean that there were not a lot of women that actually made the discovery. But anyway, so there's a link that I'm going to add to the description of 17 women that changed the face of physics, and this is just a tiny example. But anyway, so this guy got into a big trouble because he was saying these things, and luckily the place where he's working in, which was CERN and had to do with physics, people were a little bit smarter, and actually they didn't accept this type of things. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen everywhere. So if in a place where you work you are discriminated, or you have some things to do, or where people don't say nice things to you or don't act nice to you just because you're a woman, maybe if you talk about it, you can be viewed as a troublemaker, which happened to me. But in that place, he was actually working in a place where people were quite smart and intelligent, and they did not allow that to happen. And he said a big mess happens, and the institutions are no longer strong enough to protect their freedom of speech. So this physicist, Alexander Stramier, believes that it's freedom of speech to say that the data doesn't lie and women don't like physics, and physics was invented and built by men. So he made this article that is causing quite a big thing around. And then the journalist Peter Conradi, this was the guy that made the article with him, or there was a journalist and was listening to him. He actually asked on Twitter, "Can you then explain why more boys than girls choose to study physics?" and why more girls than boys choose to study humanities. Now, this could be just simply preference. It doesn't mean that a physicist, a woman, is not as good as men, or it cannot be even better, But actually, there was this these women that joined together and answered the question. So on the top, I have here some degrees earned by women, and as you can see, over time they increase, including physics. Now, what happened before? Before, there were different expectations between men and women were not accepted to want certain things, and they were not allowed to do certain degrees. And you might remember that about a century ago, women were not allowed to vote. Women were not allowed, as I said, to go to university, and they were not going to be allowed to be doing certain degrees. So you may not see that, but actually that bias continues now in a way. Is not so much that is as evident as before, but the reality is that men have more access to resources like funding, space, lab space, support, than women are, and people are in fact biased between choosing a man and a female. For something like physics, they tend to actually choose a man. So there is a lot of bias, and this comes from stuff that happened decades ago. But it takes time for people to finally keep carrying on and getting this equality per se, or women starting to choose more physics. And it doesn't mean that women need to like physics as much as men. I'm a woman, I like physics, I like pink, I like dresses, and all my students saw my colors in my hair and all these things. It doesn't mean that I don't like other stuff that women do, or it doesn't mean that a man may not like stuff that women do. It's just preferences. It doesn't mean that everyone needs to take the same degree to make it more biased towards one or the other. Or it doesn't mean that just because more men choose physics because they like it more, doesn't mean that they are better than women. So that is the bottom line, really. But anyway, so they also gave examples of a book that refer women as bitches. And this is something that people actually feel. So what I'm trying to say here is, especially for women that are quite intelligent. I met lots of students. There are female students, of course, male as well, but female students that have lots of abilities. They are amazing at physics, and it is a reality. This does happen, but I like to think that this is not going to happen for long. And don't stop going into that career if you read an article such as this one, because I made it through. I just left my old boss, and I'm now in a place where I'm treated like a normal person, or a person where I'm treated with amount of respect and support that I deserve. But you may find a person like this physicist Alexandro Stromier, and you may just move on and go to a place where people actually respect your work and appreciate your work. And it's just really, I just hope that if I have any ex-student or students reading this article, that they don't stop pursuing physics just because of that. Finally, the scientists claim that papers by women are cited less often, and moreover, women write fewer papers than men. Again, this is, number one, not a really accurate proxy for quality, but also what happens is study finds that men are more likely to quote themselves and quote their own papers, and women are less likely to do so. They actually tend to not quote their papers. So again, this is just an example on why you may see more quoted papers by research made by men and not women. It doesn't mean that their quality is not as big. And again, if you think about it, if the numbers for men and women are different, then of course it's normal that you have less papers quoted to be of women papers than men's. I just messed up a little bit in terms of my grammar, but anyway, it made sense. So it also shows that there's also trend, and you can see that in general, people tend to favor male students. Again, I don't think this is happening much in the workplace where I am, and where I was. I didn't see that happening much, but it's just to make you aware that this is what is going on at the moment in science. So this is for this week in science, in physics actually. So I'm gonna put this link in here about 17 women that changed the face of physics, because every so often you are going to find an Alexandra Stromier that is going to say some stuff that is not quite true, and it's good to be a little bit smart and have your own brain and to look at the data and take your own conclusions. So there you go. This is all for this week in physics. I hope that I didn't get many people angry right now, but honestly, as a person that does physics and is a woman and that knows a lot of intelligent women that also do physics, I really, it just blows my mind to know that people still think about that. I really thought my old boss, was the only one. Maybe not. Anyway, past is past, and I'm moving on. So take care, and see you maybe for a riddle. I think I'm gonna give you the solution of the riddle soon. Anyway, take care. Bye. Up to my next video. Be happy and healthy.